This is mental wellness in the modern world. Our mission is to connect biblical and psychological principles to better understand ourselves and the world around us. In a time when chaos is loud and pressure feels constant, peace isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Mental wellness isn't just about surviving, it's about finding clarity, strength, and meaning in the everyday. This is where honest conversations happen, where healing meets truth, and where you're reminded that you're not alone. Hi, I'm Eleni Lobene, and this is Mental Wellness in the Modern World with Benison Kingdom Network. Today, we're going to be talking about a classic psychological theory called the bystander effect. Sometimes it's now called diffusion of responsibility. They're kind of interconnected topics, but the central tenet of the concept of the bystander effect is this idea that when in groups, people will sometimes not take responsibility for what's going on around them. There's this assumption that somebody else will handle it, or somebody else already has handled it. Somebody else can make a phone call, somebody else. Now, this concept is really a social psychology concept, and it's one that's been studied because when there have been really serious issues with maybe like someone not calling the police, let's say there's like the initial time that this came up in the world, in the psychology world where it started to be studied, was when a woman was murdered, and according to the newspaper that published this story about this woman's murder, there were 38 people who heard it and didn't call it in. That turned out to be not completely accurate information, but it was the beginning of this idea of diffused or social responsibility, where people don't take responsibility because they think somebody else is going to do it. Interestingly, this concept, of course not called the bystander effect and not called diffusion of responsibility, does appear in the Bible many times. You probably are familiar with the classic story of the Good Samaritan, which is, of course, when multiple people passed this person who was in need on the road and did not help this person. But then this Good Samaritan, the person who was sort of the least likely or least equipped to support the person, did. Okay, so the story is that, this idea that God rewards and wants people to help others, right? And that we shouldn't just walk by when someone is in need. In the Bible, it also talks about in multiple places. In James, there's a verse stating that failing to do good when you're capable of doing good is a sin. In Proverbs, there's a passage about not withholding our good when it's within our power to act. And in Matthew, Jesus condemns directly those who do not help those in need and says that when we do help those in need, we're helping him in a way, right? So God makes it really clear in the Bible that we are not supposed to assume other people are going to do good in the world. He wants us to figure out how to do good in the world. God wants us to figure out how to do good in the world. So today, I want you to think about in your life, in your day-to-day life, where you might have been guilty, if you will, of committing this psychological error of the bystander effect. Or when have you exhibited diffusion of responsibility in your thinking? When have you thought, oh, somebody else will take care of that? When really you could have stepped up to the plate to do the right thing. And it can take place in any context, on any scale. It doesn't have to be calling in a crime, but it could be on some smaller level, raising an issue or just doing something good for somebody else when there's a need, being the person that steps up to drive that person to church when they need a ride, or being the person who says yes and helping in some small way. Those are ways that we can challenge our thinking and we can do good when someone else could, but we can fill those shoes ourselves. I'm Eleni Lobene. This is Benison Kingdom Network, and I hope that you'll consider how you can challenge your bystander thinking. If you have questions, let me know. I want to hear your questions. I want to hear what you're interested in hearing more about. I'm Eleni Lobene, and this is Benison Kingdom Network.